Oh hi, I'm Kieran MacLeod. Allegedly not a dickhead, depending on who you ask. I'm just outside sunning my pussy because I've heard it's good for me. I wanted to do a travel vlog a little bit differently, because I know that when someone looks like me, I have to work extra hard to be very respectful. So I went to Japan, and walking around outside with a camera, talking to myself, makes the small bit of public shame I have left swell like a soon-to-be-removed testicle. So I've worked extra hard to be respectful to the people and the culture. Stop one, continuing my personal heritage, the suicide forest. It was my first time on a flight overseas, and I was kept perfectly safe and comfortable in the Boeing Dreamliner 787, the sky's safest plane. In Japan, I had an absolute blast. Sorry, too soon. I had an absolute whale of a time. Sorry. I had a nice time full of beautiful sights, good company that only occasionally gave me the shits, and beautiful food that corked me up like a colon-flavoured fine wine. Welcome then to this, a travel vlog sponsored by Common Decency. Hey, do you like nice sights? Beautiful scenery? I bet you do. Perv. I'm here to give you a fine little taste. Just a little bit, to whet your appetite. Everywhere you turn, there's a feast for the... Fuck.
There's a feast for the fuck?
Everywhere you turn, there's a feast for the eyes. And if you're like me, from Brisbane, stroke Ipswich, the best sights you normally see are Stephen Miles' gun policy. I used to think that architecture and architects were just God's way of punishing engineers for being autistic. However...
Let's just move straight on from that one.
What I actually discovered, that's just because I'm used to Brisbane, which is just a sea of grey brick and council-based slabs. I didn't realise that architecture could actually be used to increase a place's livability. What? Crazy idea. Wild times. What's the rest of that fucking line?
That sounded like it was straight from the heart. Was that even written?
Part of it. Japanese architecture feels like it comes from a faraway land. Designed primarily to make good use of wood and to withstand a lot of water damage, much like your mum, there are also obvious differences in sizes between Australia and Japan. In housing, perverts. In Japan, the smaller dwellings are smaller than our dwellings. Could be a problem, but much like your mum says, it's not about the size, it's about making sure everyone can get in. Come on boys, come on in, we're open for business.
Even Archie is wincing at that one. Look at him. Look at him. He's like, get a load of this dickhead.
And every time I went for a walk down an alleyway or got lost talking to the Yakuza, I'd find myself lost looking at the beautiful sights and scenery that surrounded me. Something that you just can't do in Fortitude Valley, for some reason. No matter how much Yakuza are still present.
What about Chinatown, though?
Don't be a racist. Speaking of, it is very nice, what's the TikTok? It is incredibly demure to see a country make good use of its ancient artifacts. It sounds kind of creepy when you say it like that, but actually put them out in public for people to see and display rather than just hiding them all in like one part of a museum. I mean, obviously they don't display that part of Japanese history, but they're getting better with it. It was absolutely magical to get away from Tokyo and get up to the Utsunomiya North region, nailed that pronunciation, don't check it, to see shades of green that would make even Kermit the Frog feel less body conscious. I'm from Australia, and this is literally a case of the grass being greener on the other side. And yes, we do have some beautiful sights here, obviously. I'm not saying that. Please don't attack me, the LMP. However, no matter what I did, every time I looked at something new or took in a new sight, I was stunned like a newborn looking at a nipple. I just wanted to really get in and suckle at all that Japan had to offer.
Or the juicy Japanese nutrients that they had to offer in the trees. You just got up in there and sucked the sap out.
There was one fruit that I saw hanging in one forest in Japan.
Oh yeah, sucked on the toes, eh?
Is this still respectful?
I'm behind the camera. I'm protected by a layer of anonymity. Who's this? You'll never know.
I'm protected by a layer of no one knows who I am, so it's...
Oh yeah?
Although
I
actually-
forgot no one gives a fuck about us yet. Cool.
But maybe they will. If we say something cooked enough, maybe we will get on the news. The other piece of scenery that we don't really have at all here in Australia is a half decent mountain. And like, yes, Kosciuszko exists and it's fine. And we do have the Glass House Mountains and like the range, but they're really more of sort of a hill. They've never really given me the same feeling that Mount Fuji gave me. I am not a spiritual man. I think that horoscopes and ghosts are quite fun to think about, but in reality a pastime for people who have to laminate their books. The only way to feel the power within is to put a fork in an outlet. Even partially wrapped by clouds during our 2-night stay in its shadow, this mountain towering over 3 kilometers above us and taking up every part of our view made me for the first time in my life understand exactly why ancient cultures came up with stories to explain it.
For me, it kind of like the way you think of it, like reminds me of when I was in Borneo. Like Mount Kinabalu had a lot of similarities to that. There's a lot of local legends around it because this is such a huge, daunting mountain, and even prisoners of war during, like Australian prisoners of war, were incredibly intimidated by the mountain because it just like was always on the horizon and they could never escape it.
Yeah.
So it became this like terrifying figure to Australian soldiers. I don't know, that's a little fun fact. Spice in there for you. There's also a bit of cat hair on the mic. I'm sure that's annoying someone on the audience if you want to give that like a...
I felt the full history and the power within this mountain, and it made even me, a 21st century STEM kid, theatre kid reject, feel for the first time that I understand why ancient cultures thought the way they did about this. Maybe it is a sleeping god. I don't know how it got there. It's huge, and there's nothing else around it like it. It's just there, being enormous. The surrounding range is about the size of the Glasshouse Mountains, and then there's just Fuji in the middle, standing and watching over everything. Of all the historical sites we saw, the grave of, and I'm very sorry, Tokugawa Ieyasu. Actually, can we just, if I just lean into the Australianness, I think it makes the pronunciation less offensive. The grave of Tokugawa Ieyasu stood out, climbing the 200 steps to the top and gawking at all the intricate architecture and nature surrounding made me understand the perks of being a warlord.
Extremely tasteful.
I'd love to
So, white man says, "Oh yeah,
I would
being
love...
a warlord would be pretty sick."
I mean, like, it's got history. I'd love to dive into that history and of him and the region, but for now it suffices to say that I once again understand what it means for a place to feel spiritually important. I did track my Strava data and steps every day of the holiday because the only thing more beautiful than culture is a good spreadsheet. With an average of just under 20,000 steps a day, it was never hard to feel like I'd really earned the late night ducking to 7-Eleven for a cheeky bento box. Beer and rice are a constant amongst the trip. I expected way more sake and other, like, you know, foods. I can't say that. And other like various dishes, but I guess even the spirits at the gravesites prefer beer. One of my main goals going into this trip was to wake up one morning and do a pre-sunrise 10k run through Tokyo. And cherry blossoms aren't blossoming, obviously. What with the, season. Oh, everything else is blossoming. The night before the runs, I checked the sunrise time, and in a cruel
Which
joke...
runs? The walkie runs or like the poopy runs? I really hope you keep that in.
As previously established, by this point in the trip, I was constipated horribly, and in a cruel twist of fate, sunrise time was 4:20 a.m. So I got up prior to that, and the sun had already risen. In the morning, I got up, had a coffee, and went about smashing Japanese pavement like it was the 40s. Unfortunately, though, it was already quite warm at 4:30 in the morning because it's summer in Japan, and it got to about 40 degrees that day. But I tell you what, it's not the heat that gets you, it's bloody humidity, son. So humid. It's like I've been swimming. Pretty, though. My legs are fine. The mind is fulfilled. Unfortunately, there's still a long way to go. I managed to push forth like the pinnacle of athleticism I am. Next stop of historical landmarks. Don't know what it is. It was kind of cool. It's such a vividly different experience to running here in Brisbane. Here you get bored after like 1 kilometer, but in Japan and in Tokyo, probably just because it was different, you'd run for a little bit, find something beautiful, check Google Maps, and then run to the next shrine another kilometer or 500 meters up the road. It's just magic. Big win for the coin lovers. Capitalism has been taken down. With all the running and walking and fucking Jesus.
With all the fucking Jesus. You got to fuck Jesus?
With all the walking and running and doing my cultural duty, it was not hard to justify treating myself to 5 square meals a day of delicious Japanese food. I went into the trip with the intention of turning off all my culinary inhibitions and putting anything I had to in my mouth. Exactly like Margaret Thatcher's best boy had to. And speaking of weird fishy tastes, the Skidgy Fish Market. If you're an Australian like me, first of all, g'day, c***. Secondly, the closest you've probably come to eating sashimi was at a high school tuck shop when you ordered a chicken wrap. And you've been told your whole life, don't eat raw fish. It's bad for you. It'll make you sick and you'll die. And you'll get poisoned and you'll die. Bloody fire and do it. Bad time. I'll tell you, I did it and I lived and I'm fine and I'm here and I'm strong. What else is big health hiding from us? The mental block was initially there, but the second I put it in my mouth and it started to melt, I understand why it has been done by millions of people for possibly at least hundreds of years, possibly thousands. I don't know. Fish have been around a while. But hey, that's still fish. I've eaten fish before. Give me something really emotionally challenging. While it did look a bit like a bunch of little tongues, it tasted like sweaty socks. So who's to really say if it was a problem or not? Maybe we should eat them. Who knows? That's up for the culinary people to decide. And I'm just a silly engineering student. Another like culinary experience I had is that I am primarily a brown rice boy. I prefer the taste. Slightly better for you, higher in fiber, and it's a nicer carb. In Japan, I ate nothing but white rice with every meal, like 5 times a day. Even in Australia, I try and avoid the rice, even the brown rice, to like maybe once or twice a week. Japan, every day, 5 times a day, white rice. Now, the effect this had on me is that, as the kids say, my colon decided to quiet quit. I was left feeling like a failed Grindr account with a completely actionless rear end. Japanese toilets are amazing, by the way. Heated toilet seats and a bidet that can get powerful enough to clean even the worst of curry mistakes, but not strong enough to induce a rice baby. I won't go into the gritty details, but it's fair to say that heated toilet seats will be the one thing I invest if ever the market recovers enough for me to buy a house. And thanks to the safety features on Japanese bidets, I now know what it's like to buy a Japanese enema. So I recommend them. They do the job. And if I had to endorse any product I had there, that was definitely be it. It was either that or really give into my maths degree and work it out with a pencil. The same rules apply there as they do here, by the way, which is the dodgier a restaurant looks, the better the Asian food. I know that's a problem to say, but it's just true. The best food I've had in my life was walking down a quite seedy looking alleyway in Tokyo, opening the beaded curtain, having smoke billow over us, and just ordering 4 plates of whatever, and sitting there around Japanese businessmen and just eating it, and having the time of my life. From the best fried chicken I've ever had to like just cow tongue, liver and whatever else, to one place we sat down and they put a tiny karaoke machine on the table, and then they put one on the businessman's table and the other tables, and I went, oh no. And because I'm polite, I waited until someone else had to go first, and then this happened.
It's growing strong. And spring became the summer. Charging you. Sweet